Hello, Story Store listeners. If you guys like this story, please subscribe to Story Store and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Martin Bennett had built his career on ambition and promises. As mayor of Brookhaven, he had once been the city's golden hope, a leader with a vision to unite the community and bring prosperity to all. But the pressures of politics had eroded that optimism, leaving behind a man weighed down by criticism and self-doubt. The previous night's council meeting had been the breaking point. Angry voices filled the chamber, decrying his failures to address rising poverty, inequity, and corruption. The morning's headlines were merciless. Mayor Bennett loses touch with Brookhaven. He had stared at the bold letters with a sinking heart, unable to reconcile the man he saw in the mirror with the leader he had aspired to be. Desperate for clarity, he skipped his usual routine, leaving his phone and aides behind to take a walk through the city he once knew so well. The park was a refuge from the chaos, a place Martin hadn't visited in years. Its familiar paths had once been his escape, a reminder of simpler times. As he wandered aimlessly, his thoughts spiraling, he noticed a young boy sitting alone on a bench. The boy's carefree demeanor drew Martin in, compelling him to sit down. For the first time in months, he felt the faintest flicker of hope. The park's early morning quiet was a stark contrast to the noise that filled Martin's mind. As he walked, the crisp air did little to clear the weight pressing on his chest. Each step carried him further from the polished offices and scripted speeches, back into the heart of the city he'd once fought to uplift. The sound of rustling leaves and distant birdsong brought faint echoes of a time when he'd walked these paths with purpose, meeting residents and listening to their dreams. But now, the park's familiarity felt foreign. He noticed how the fountain's paint was peeling, its once pristine water murky. Benches were weathered, and the playground equipment bore the marks of neglect. This was not the vibrant community hub he'd envisioned when he first ran for office. Instead, it was a reflection of the discontent he had witnessed at the council meeting, a city fraying at the edges. Martin's thoughts swirled with self-recrimination as he rounded a bend and saw the boy. Jamie sat on the bench, legs swinging. A sandwich balanced carefully on his lap. The boy's humming was off-key but cheerful, a sound so out of sync with Martin's inner turmoil that it stopped him in his tracks. He hadn't intended to approach, but Jamie's easy smile beckoned him like a lifeline. Sitting down, Martin offered a polite nod. Jamie didn't hesitate, his eyes bright with curiosity. The boy's warmth was disarming, and as they exchanged introductions, Martin felt his guarded exterior crack. For the first time in months, he wasn't a politician or a failing leader, just a man sharing a moment with a boy who had no expectations of him. In Jamie's simplicity, Martin found a rare and fragile reprieve. Jamie's world was small but vibrant, colored by the boundless optimism only a child could possess. At 8 years old, he didn't see their struggles as insurmountable, just as part of life. He lived in a modest apartment with his mom, a waitress who worked long hours at a diner across town. Despite her exhaustion, she always found time to make Jamie feel loved, often packing his lunch with a little extra in case he wanted to share with someone. The park was Jamie's sanctuary. While his mom worked, he spent hours exploring its corners, watching squirrels scurry up trees, or listening to the rhythmic creak of swings. He liked to imagine the park as a kingdom, and he was its adventurous prince. Today, he'd packed 2 sandwiches instead of 1, hoping to share. It was something his mom often reminded him to do. "You never know who might need a little kindness," she'd say. When Jamie saw the tired man walking toward the bench, he knew right away this was someone who needed a sandwich. The man's shoulders drooped, and his face carried an expression Jamie didn't fully understand, but knew wasn't happy. Offering the sandwich was instinctive. Jamie had learned from his mom that even small gestures could make someone's day better. As the man hesitated before taking the food, Jamie grinned. "Mom says sharing makes the world brighter," he said. For Jamie, the act was simple. For Martin, it would prove transformative. Martin took a slow bite of the sandwich, savoring the simple yet comforting taste. It wasn't just food, it was a symbol of unasked for kindness. "This is good," he said, breaking the silence. Jamie beamed, swinging his legs. "My mom makes the best sandwiches. She says food tastes better when you share." Martin chuckled softly, a rare sound these days. "Your mom's a wise woman." Jamie nodded proudly. "She's my hero. Who's yours?" The question caught Martin off guard. He looked at Jamie, his earnest face awaiting an answer, and felt something shift within him. Martin hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know if I have one anymore," he admitted quietly. Jamie tilted his head, frowning slightly. "Maybe you forgot. My mom says heroes remind us to be better. You just need to remember." The boy's simple wisdom hit Martin harder than he expected. Here was a child, unburdened by cynicism, offering a perspective he hadn't considered in years. For the first time, Martin felt the faint stirrings of inspiration, a reminder of why he had taken on the role of mayor in the first place. As the morning sun climbed higher, Martin felt an unusual lightness in his chest. He hadn't come to the park seeking answers, yet Jamie's words planted a seed he couldn't ignore. He finished the sandwich and turned to the boy. "You know, Jamie, you might be right. Maybe I've just forgotten what matters most." Jamie's grin widened. "It's easy. Just start small. That's what Mom does." Martin nodded thoughtfully. "Starting small, I think I can do that." As they parted ways, Martin walked back through the park, observing the cracks and wear with a new sense of purpose. These weren't just signs of neglect, they were opportunities for change. Jamie's simple act of kindness reminded him of the values he'd once held dear. By the time he returned to City Hall, Martin had made a decision. He gathered his team and began outlining a plan to address the park's repairs, involving local volunteers and businesses. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of hope, not just for the city, but for himself. Jamie's kindness had reignited the spark he thought he'd lost forever. News of the park's revitalization spread quickly, inspiring a wave of community involvement. Volunteers of all ages came together to repaint benches, plant flowers, and repair the playground equipment. Local businesses donated supplies, and neighborhood families pitched in with labor and refreshments. Martin, unrecognizable from the weary figure who had wandered into the park weeks earlier, led by example, rolling up his sleeves and working alongside the residents. Jamie and his mom were among the first to join the effort. Jamie's laughter echoed as he helped plant flowers, his enthusiasm contagious. When asked why he was so invested, Jamie grinned and replied, "Because it's our park. We all share it." The transformation extended beyond the park's physical appearance. Martin's renewed focus on small, meaningful projects brought a sense of unity back to Brookhaven. Public trust in his leadership began to rebuild, and he found himself reconnecting with the people he served. Jamie's simple act of kindness had started a ripple effect, proving that even the smallest gestures could lead to profound change. Months later, at the park's reopening ceremony, Martin stood before the crowd, Jamie at his side. "This boy reminded me of something important," he said, his voice steady. "Change begins with kindness." The park's reopening marked the beginning of a new chapter for Brookhaven. As the ribbon was cut and laughter filled the air, Martin looked around and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Jamie's simple act of kindness had reignited not just a park, but an entire community. The once faded benches now gleamed with fresh paint, and vibrant flowers lined the walkways. Children ran across the revitalized playground, their laughter a melody of renewal. Residents of all ages gathered, sharing stories, food, and dreams. Oh, it was a moment of unity, a testament to what could be achieved when a community came together. Jamie stood beside Martin, beaming with pride. His mom wiped away a tear as she watched her son, the spark that had set everything in motion. Months later, the park became a symbol of Brookhaven's resilience and the power of small acts to create lasting change. Martin continued to focus on similar grassroots projects, working closely with residents to rebuild trust and make a tangible difference. Jamie, now a local hero, inspired others to look for ways to help their neighbors. In time, the story of a boy and a sandwich became a legend in Brookhaven, a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest impact.